What's up, guys? This is Sam with 245 Elite. Today I have Derek here with me from Team Rogue, and we just want to kind of go over some things for our 2014 wrap-up for this past season. And we now claim, or I personally believe, that it's over now. We just had the last S3X event for 2014. There's no more events left, and so even after World Cup, I personally believe that there is a little bit left over. Now that everything's over, we want to kind of go over everything and give you our personal opinions. This is just kind of what we think and our thoughts on this year and what's coming up next year. We will go over a bunch of, I personally think kind of cool stuff. And so
yeah, we'll be going over roster changes and anything like that. So
lots of cool things coming up. We will be doing these videos a lot. So stay tuned. If you have any ideas or anything you want us to talk about, just let us know and we can throw it in there. First up, our Chaos coming in with the win at World Cup, just blowing out Damage. What were your thoughts on that, Derek?
That was a hell of a game for Art Chaos. They literally blew Damage out of the water. If you guys go back and watch the replay on Paintball Access, it didn't even look like a game. What was the final score of that?
It was 7-0.
7-0,
the final score
right?
was that. Yeah.
So, for Damage to take a loss like that in the finals after playing such a great event, it's got to be a huge blow to them. But congrats to Art Chaos. It's a shame that they're not going to be coming back next year. I think the issue was money, if I'm not mistaken.
I am not 100% sure. I heard it was something like that. But, when you have the owner of Heat who just has an enormous amount of money and can afford to have all these Russian players over here, and this could totally not be true, but this is my personal opinion, is that with him having that kind of money and being able to afford these players, he offered all of them a deal that they just couldn't refuse. And so being a paintball player and knowing that there's not really that much money in professional paintball, if you get offered something that's crazy that's going to make you switch teams from a winning team to switch right after you guys just won World Cup, there's got to be something on the table there that was just ridiculous. And I'm sure it's hard for any player to turn it down.
Well, they literally just got the original Heat back that we saw in 2011.
It would have been 2011, 2012 in that area.
So I feel like they're gonna basically kill it this season. They should do big things with the lineup.
I definitely think personally, I think it'll be hard. They have so much talent on the team now, and they have so many. They literally have 10 veterans on the team. It's not like you have 5 veterans and 4 or 5 new guys. It's you have 10 guys who have been playing for years, who have all made a name for themselves. So I think it's going to be hard for them to kind of find the balance between who can be on the field and not butting heads, because honestly, they have too many chefs in the kitchen in a way. And so I think it's going to be hard to kind of find the balance as to who to put on the field and who can actually get it done. And by all means, they have all the players that they can get it done, but I think finding the balance is going to be difficult for them for the first few events. So I think, luckily, they get to start out in the Challengers Division for 2015 because they just got knocked down. Revo knocked them down. And so if everything goes over to next year, they'll be starting in the Challengers Division. So I think that'll be a good warm-up to kind of see what they have and see if they can put it together and make it work. The owner's got a lot of money into it, so they better make something work quickly. So
yeah, like you're saying, there's a lot of stars on that team. There's so much talent that it's going to be hard to find those 5 guys that can get it done and get it done well without hurting feelings on that team. I feel like it's going to be almost a little bit tougher for them battling themselves than going out there and playing other teams. It's going to be fun to watch, and we'll see what happens.
Definitely. Well, let's move on to the next thing real quick. Infamous. They were in the Challengers for 3 events. Got knocked down at MAO.
The crazy thing is they won Chicago.
And they won, it was Dallas. They won the first event in Dallas.
Okay.
So they won the first event in Dallas, and then at MAO they just totally shit the bed, and it was bad. And I know there's a lot of rumors flying around as to what they did in California in prelims against Aftershock and kind of throwing the match and stuff like that. If that's true or not, it's whatever.
If it's true, then you know what? Sucks.
It was karma. That's all you got to say. Is just karma.
Revo came in there and showed them what was up.
And that's just one of the things that as a professional team and winning a professional event, it should never come down to that. Personally, if you have to, and like I said, this might not be true, but if it is, if you had to throw a match just so that you could play an easier team, we saw how that worked out, then you're not in it. Your head's not in it the right way. You're trying to cheat the system, and it just didn't work out that time.
Yeah,
so.
that also brings up a point. It's crazy how close the Division I, the challengers, and the pros really are. There's really a fine line between them right now, and you can see that now with the challengers division. These new upcoming teams, AC Dallas, Revo, making it into the pro division in their first challengers event. I think it was. Yeah.
And it was the first one was in Chicago. They went 2-2, so they knew they could compete. And then the second one in California is when they actually bumped up to play pro at Cup.
Yeah,
so.
First year in the Challengers. I think there's how many teams have been stuck in the Challengers for 2 seasons now. So that's just a great accomplishment for them. At least Infamous is finally back up there too. So I guess we'll see who actually pans out.
I think now we're going to see who can stay, and we're going to see who grinded the hardest in the off season and who can make it. It's a big thing to make it up into the pro, but we've seen a lot of big teams come down now. And
Dynasty
came down.
Yeah.
You have Xfactor that came down. 3 Infamous coming down. So you have 3 teams that have won events and that can compete in the pro. And it just goes to show you that, like you said earlier, it's so close now that anything can go any way. One person getting shot off the break can change the whole dynamic of the game and the whole dynamic of the match. And so it just goes to show that just the littlest thing can change it all. So let's get on to the next thing here. Well, while we're talking about it, we said a few things earlier about it with Revo. They started out in Division 1 in 2014, getting, I believe, a 5th place and a 2nd place.
Well, actually, the cool thing about Revo is they've played all the way up through the divisions. They've been together a lot longer than 2014, but you really started seeing them in 2014 when they hit that D1 division. They're crushing it though, is all I can say. Those guys are doing awesome. I'm so proud of them. They're actually semi-local to us. They're up in Maryland. We play with a lot of them. So you know what? I want to see them succeed. They're in the pro division now, and that's pretty much every serious tournament paintballer's dream. So
this is definitely to play pro, and like he said, they're an hour and 10 minutes away from us. They're not very far, and playing on DC Devastation, we practice those guys all the time, and it's good to see local faces, local guys that actually can be up there, compete. They had a little bit of a rough showing at World Cup, but pull out that last match against Houston Heat, making it so that they could compete in the pro division in 2015 at Dallas.
That's a feat in itself. Staying in the pro division at your first event.
To come up and to actually win that match. Out of all the matches to win, that's definitely the best one to win. Because then you can say you made a statement, hey, and it was against Houston Heat, another big powerhouse team, and so it was making a statement right then, saying, hey, we can compete up here, we can do this. And we're here to stay, and I think that was a big thing for Revo to be able to do that. And personally, I'm friends with all those guys, and so it was good. It was good to kind of cheer for the home team, really. And so I'm happy that happened the way that it did. And so more power to them, except for Henry. We don't like him.
Yeah, Henry.
Henry can piss off. All right, let's move on to the next. Vicious disbanded this year. Right after World Cup, they disbanded as a team, and it's honestly, I think it's personally sad to see. I thought they had a pretty good year. I mean, they didn't.
They never went down into the Challengers this year.
No, they stayed up this whole year, and that's an accomplishment right there. And then, they didn't win any. They did get 2nd in Dallas, and then after that, they got close, had some rough matches and things like that, but. Personally, for me, Vicious was always a team that I looked up to coming up the ranks myself, because they were one of the teams that started at the bottom, D3, and worked all the way up into the pro. And they haven't had the best showing in the pro, but they were there and they could compete with the pro guys, and they could get out there and they could throw the punches right back to everybody. And so, I mean, personally, I hate to see them break up. I think that they're all great guys and they had a great program, and so it's sad to see that it's ended now.
Yeah, that was a a family organization, and the Vicious guys actually they do a lot of great things for the kids. I know they do charity events and all that, so it's going to be sad to see them leave, but it's also going to be cool to see what happens if the rumor is that a few of them are going to AC Dallas. I'm not even sure which players that would be, but if that happens, I feel like AC Dallas is going to be a team to watch.
That's them reconnecting with Greg Pauly. I mean, he was their coach for a long time, bringing them through the divisional ranks, and then once they got up there high, I know Todd Martinez kind of took over and they had a falling out. So it's going to be, if that rumor is true, where they do come back or they do play with AC Dallas, it's going to be interesting to see how they reconnect with Greg Pauly and his coaching style, and because we know that anybody that's played at the PSP, if you watch Greg Pauly and his teams, they have such a connection that no other teams I've ever seen.
It's like a band of brothers.
It is, and Greg really, he tells them exactly what to do, and the kids execute it. And so you got to give them. They won 2 events this year, so you got to give them a thumbs up for that. And they did move on; they're winning the series as well. And so it's going to be interesting to see with winning 2 events in D1 and then moving on and picking up some Vicious players. That's going to be a team to watch out for. They're going to be killers all year, and I'm excited to see what happens with that as well.
Did they ever announce how many teams they were taking up into the Challengers since they were losing?
I'm not 100% sure how many teams are taking up this year. I know with Art Chaos breaking up, and then Vicious breaking up, so that's 2 teams. I know that the Challengers teams have meetings, and with that, they said that with how it's supposed to work, the bottom 2 teams in Challengers are supposed to drop out, go down to D1, or just whatever you're going to do, but they're supposed to leave. With 2 teams disbanding and not being teams anymore, I know with the Challengers division, they have 10 teams in it, and that at the end of the season, the bottom 2 teams have to bump down. My guess was, I didn't look at the exact scores, but I believe it was Excessive and Seattle Thunder. They didn't have very good showings the whole year. They did give some tough teams some matches, but it wasn't anything. Obviously it wasn't anything that they could move up with. And so with taking teams up, I know that they have a meeting in the Challengers division before each event, and they said that if 2 teams just disband and drop out, they're not going to make the other bottom 2 teams drop out. And so I believe it's just going to be
AC Dallas.
Just probably AC Dallas and Trade My Gun were the top 2 D1 teams to move up. The rumor on the street is that Trade My Gun wasn't going to take their spot. And if that's the case, then I believe Carolina Collision is the next team. Actually, they came in 3rd. Carolina Collision was the next team in line to get that spot. And so it's going to be interesting to see what actually happens in 2015 and what pans out, really. So we'll just have to really kind of see what happens from there.
We're just going to have to watch and wait on that
one. Another thing, last thing that we're going to talk about for today in this kind of video here is Colin Markowski. Big news. One of the main players for Aftershock for many years now. He is actually leaving Aftershock to go play with Xfactor. And personally, that really blew my mind. I thought out of everybody that would leave that team between him and Lawhead, I never thought that they would leave the team. Now, Lawhead's not leaving, and I say they, but that's just one of the 2 players on that team that I would never expect to leave. And so it's interesting to hear and see that he's going to be gone and what kind of relationship problems that's going to cause with people in the industry.
I don't personally think that it's going to cause a problem. I think Aftershock is going to be missing a big part of their game. Aftershock was one of those teams that just came at you fast, hard, and aggressive, and he is one of those fast, hard, aggressive players. And great pickup for Xfactor because now they have him and Bernacchi over there. So they're going to be super strong on that snake side. But I don't know what Aftershock's going to do. I don't know how they're going to actually be able to replace a player such as him.
Yeah, replacing a guy like him is just not. He's claimed right now as the fastest player in the league with his speed and his aggressiveness. If you watch the videos of the Aftershock team as they were following him around this past year, they said that in there he was the guy to shoot on go. Like in Dallas, they were just aiming for him. That's what they were doing. They shoot for that guy, and so it's definitely interesting, and it's kind of. I don't know, I still think it's kind of crazy that he's leaving. But, it's new opportunities, new team. Maybe he can make something out of it. Aftershock hasn't had the best showing. Xfactor has a decent showing. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they mesh. And he's learned he has his own style with Aftershock. And so now he's going to have to play in the Xfactor style. And it's going to be interesting to see that he can mesh with those guys and make it work. Because with Xfactor being a bunch of veterans out there,
they're very meticulous about what they do.
Bringing on the new guy
on tape.
Mm-hmm. And with the owner, Alex Martinez, he's one of those guys that treats everybody like family, but he expects a lot, and as he should. He puts a lot of money into it, and so we'll kind of see how it works out. Real quick, with that being said, with Nick Sloviak being dropped off of the Houston Heat roster, he originally came from Aftershock, so I think you're going to see Nick on Aftershock for the 2015 season, because you're dropping a good player, and you can pick up a decent to good player if you pick up Nick, and so I think that they're going to be filling his spot with Nick. Now he's not a front fast snake guy, but he can fill a spot and he can definitely play the game, and so he's a threat as well. Do
we know where Ronnie went?
We have no idea where Ronnie went. I personally haven't heard anything. I also haven't researched into it, so that's something that we'll look into, and we'll give you updates on the next video, but we'll have to see what happens with that as well.
Yeah, that'd be actually a pretty decent pickup for Aftershock as well, if they could snag Ronnie.
I think I might be totally wrong, but I thought Ronnie was up in that Chicago area near Aftershock, because he's always up there training with one of the guys from Trade My Gun Outlaws, and they live up there in that kind of Chicago area, or that part of the country. Not exactly where from, but that might be another pickup. They might pick up Ronnie and Nick. Nick did an interview earlier with Social Paintball, and you hear him say that he didn't want to tell what he was going to do. Everybody pretty much knows what he's going to do, but it's hard to say. And he also stated that he wasn't going to be able. He didn't see a good chance as him and his buddies to play together again, the ones that got dropped off the team. And so, he might have just been lying and putting up a smoke screen, but then again, maybe he's not. Maybe he's going solo and playing with some random team that we have no idea. So it's going to be interesting to see, and as we get more details, we'll definitely let everybody know. And
one thing I want to talk about before we go, Dynasty getting dropped to the Challengers division.
That was crazy.
Was it a fluke?
I don't know. We actually went and practiced Dynasty right before California. We went to one of the private fields over there near Riverside, practiced with them, for the majority of the day, and they looked like a solid, like they had a solid group. And just to go 0-5 really blew my mind. They have the most winning team in the history of paintball. I believe they've won over 50 professional events. They have won, and so personally, I think it was a fluke. I think it was one of those things that it was just a bad situation. They didn't have it together, but there are so many legends on that team that it's not gonna happen again. I don't think. But you know what? It's paintball. You never know what's gonna happen. So
I think Dynasty. The thing about Dynasty is kind of like the new Houston Heat roster is. There's a lot of superstars on that team, and if you've watched I think it's the Reckoning series. They actually go over that. Maybe something along those lines was going on in the pits. Not really sure, but I think it was kind of a fluke too. I think we'll see them right back up in the pro division for the, what is it? Dallas, Chicago?
For the Dallas event?
Yeah.
They'll be back up there for the Dallas event. And with their match against Infamous for first and second that was named the match of 2014. Like that was the most exciting match of 2014. That's what Paintball Access said. That's what I personally believe. I know you believe that. The match was crazy. It went to one-on-ones.
I think anticipated for sure. I was waiting.
This was the first match in the professional league that ever went to one-on-ones, and so that's crazy in itself. Personally, playing one-on-ones in the finals I've done that, and it's the most nerve-wracking thing. So I know what they're going through. But I don't. With one-on-ones, it's shoddy. They put a bunch of greats out there, and Infamous came out with the win with hanging the flag real quick with just like a second left on the clock. But I think that was just one of those things that it didn't really matter who won. They're both going back to the pro division, and for 2015, and now is the time to prove it. If it was a fluke, all right, go out there and prove it. Let's see it. Let's see it not be a fluke. But with
They'll be back.
with their track record, it was a fluke. I personally think. But I mean, it wasn't a fluke with Infamous being down 3 events. That was just one of those things where they just didn't have their head in the game. They didn't have it together. So we'll see how they do this year as well. Other than that, guys, thank you all for listening in on this. We're going to be doing these, quite a bit. Listen up if you want to hear anything. If you want us to talk about anything in particular, just let us know. Post it in the comments under the video on the Facebook. Like our Facebook page, 245 Elite. Also like Skyline Paintball as well. They sponsor these videos. Thank you, Derek from Team Rogue, for coming in and doing this one with me. I like to have a lot of guest people, but he's the main guy who I'll always pick. And so if there's anything you guys want to know, let us know. We'll get you going. 245 Elite, Sam and Derek, we're signing off. Thank you, guys.